In today's video, we continue on with our NHL offseason plan series. We're now on the 26th ranked team from the regular season, the Buffalo Sabres. It feels like this team has been rebuilding way too long. They've missed the playoffs way too long. How can they get over the hump? What should we expect from them in this offseason when it comes to the draft, free agency, trades, and more to make this team hopefully get over the hump finally? We'll discuss that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we analyze the Buffalo Sabres and take a look at their 2025 off-season plan, or at least what it should be. Obviously, another underwhelming season to say the least. They ranked 26th in the league, of course, near the bottom of their division. We saw a couple of years back they just missed out on making the playoffs, and then we saw them take another step back here again. So, like the last couple of years. Really, it was gone in their opposite direction that they'd want. You thought this team was building up towards getting into the playoffs, and like I said, the last 2 years we've seen regression, and there's really not a lot of room for regression when you're already out of the playoffs and supposedly continuing on a rebuild. But let's take a look at the 24-25 season. We're going to first recap how everything went, and then we're going to take a look at what we should expect from them this offseason. Look at their cap space, internal business, expiring contracts, the draft, trades, free agency. What do we expect the Sabres to do? So let's first recap last year. Like I said, 79 points. Again, not nearly good enough. 26th in the league. Second last in their division. 36, 39, and 7 was their record. They scored 265 goals, which actually wasn't too bad. Scoring was not a big issue this year. They actually scored 19 more goals this year than last year, which was a good step in the right direction, but goals against was a major problem. It's been a problem for a while, but it got drastically worse this year. They allowed 287 for 30th best, so near the bottom of the league. The year before, goals against was at 244. So that's a minus 43 differential from year to year. So yeah, they scored more, but they let in way more than they ever did anyway. So really, all those extra goals were erased and then some. Power play was not overly great, 18.8%. The penalty kill was okay, not great either, 76.4. So both the special teams there, 24th and 23rd in the league respectively. So again, lots of work to do. The only thing the main positive here is that they had a lot of offense. They were able to score a good amount of goals. We saw them have some good seasons from some of their offensive players, but they need more on the other side of the puck for sure if they're going to take a step forward. Looking at the goaltending, we got Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who played the most games between the pipes this year, had a record of 24, 24, and 5, 3.2 goals against, and an .887 save percentage. James Reimer came in and played, got 22 decisions for you, 10, 10, and 2. With a 304 and an 897, so slightly better than UPL, but not fantastic. And Devin Levi, of course, who spent the bulk of the year in the minors, 2-7 record at the NHL with a 4.12 and an 872 save percentage. Now, I think they were hoping at this point that Levi would be further along. I think they were hoping that UPL would be a stronger starter by now as well. After the year before, his numbers were better. He earned himself a good contract extension, and this past season did not quite live up to the hype. Although I don't think you can put all of this on him. I think the team in front of him played a role in that, but I do think that they expected more from him too. It's not, fair to put it all on him, but he certainly shares his share of it. I think that's fair to say. Now, looking at this team's scoring leaders this past year, they were led by Tage Thompson, who had a much better season goal scoring wise, 44 goals and 72 points. JJ Peterka had another good season as well, 27 goals and 68 points. He's quickly become one of the stronger players, and especially offensively on the team. Rasmus Dahlin was tied with Peterka with 68 points, and veteran Alex Tuch with 67. So ideally, you'd like to see Thompson, I think, get a few more points, and his goal totals are quite high, but not a lot of assists there to go along with it. But you need more players up in that 60, 70 or more range. Like, you don't even have a player averaging a point per game. It's tough to get into the playoffs like that. But the good thing here, though, is that where they were a higher scoring team, that this shows that everything was kind of spread out a little bit more and not as reliant on, one or two players like some teams certainly are. Of course, we saw them make a significant trade near the trade deadline as well, trading Dylan Cousins and Dennis Gilbert to the Senators in exchange for Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard-Docker. Right now, this trade's looked pretty good for Ottawa, with Cousins playing definitely some pretty good hockey for them and being pretty well a point-per-game player through the stint between the regular season and into the few playoff games. However, we can't say this is a one-sided trade right now. Josh Norris had been battling injuries, which unfortunately I think is the main reason the Senators were wanting to part with him. Not so much from the hockey side of it, because I think this is a player that they really liked, and he was really starting to grow into a really good two-way player, former 35-goal man. Unfortunately, he's had some tough injuries, and it certainly affected his ability to be in the lineup and his ability to, I think, put up a little bit more points than we've seen in the past. But he came over to Buffalo, only played a couple of games, aggravated an injury he was already dealing with, and was basically shut down the rest of the year. So until we can see the big question around Norris, can he remain healthy and be that 30-goal guy that they rely on in a two-way role, and be the player that they're hoping he can be? That's going to be the big question. It's too early to tell just yet. But for right now, the trade looks more favorable to Ottawa because we saw a lot more out of Cousins. But we'll see. I think JBD definitely has more long-term upside than Gilbert does as well. So, again, a player who just couldn't stay consistently in the Sens lineup, and obviously it's a good opportunity for him. Going into the offseason here, the Sabres have $21.4 million in cap space. So they have $74 million committed to 18 players next year. So that means they have a maximum of 5 roster spots open. They do have a bunch of players that are eligible for extensions, but they don't have a lot of guys that are expiring, but some of the ones they do are certainly interesting and important pieces. So let's take a look at their internal business here first with their RFAs and UFAs. The UFA side is, well, it's quite simple. It's one guy. That's it. One pending UFA, and that's veteran goaltender James Reimer. Will he be back? Maybe. It's kind of hard to say, to be completely honest. It really depends on how they feel about Levi. But I do think that there's a possibility, we'll get into this here in the next segment, that we could see a very different goalie tandem in Buffalo next year. But hard to say what the future holds for Reimer. It's going to boil down to some other moves. I think they're maybe open to it, but they've got some bigger things to take care of before they make that decision. On the restricted free agent side, we've got Ryan McLeod, who of course came over in a trade with the Edmonton Oilers last offseason. He's definitely getting re-signed for sure. He's proven to be a pretty good player for them. Good speed, good two-way game. JJ Peterka, restricted free agent coming out of his rookie contract. Has had a couple of solid years now for the Sabres. So again, the only question is, does he get a long-term, bigger money contract, or does he get a bridge deal? But Peterka's definitely getting signed. Jack Quinn, less certain about Quinn. He has potential, and I still think that he's a player that very well could be a bigger piece for the Sabres, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if he was used in a package to bring in another upgrade. I think he's a player that they're kind of on defense with, so we'll see. Bo Byram, another player, and Jacob Bernard-Docker. Bernard-Docker shouldn't be too difficult to sign. I can see him getting a 2 or 3 year deal, under $2 million. Like, it's not, I don't think that's going to cost him a ton of money, and I think he's, likes the opportunity there in Buffalo compared to what he had in Ottawa, so I don't see that being a big deal. Byram, on the other hand, will be the more complicated one, and we'll talk about him. He's definitely going to be getting an NHL contract. He's definitely going to get paid well. The question is it going to be in Buffalo? And we'll tackle that here in the next segment as well. Players that are eligible for contract extensions doesn't mean you're going to necessarily see it. Some of these players they can take their time with. The main one's Alex Tuch. I think they probably want to get ahead of this one if they can. We know Tuch, local product, came over from Vegas, and the Eichel trade was quite happy to be in Buffalo. And I know that at times they've had players that maybe have struggled to want to be there. I don't think that's an issue with Tuch, but at the same time, after a number of years there now, and he hasn't get a chance to get in the playoffs and really do any serious winning, what is he feeling like? If he wants to stay, you sign him. He's been a good, productive player. I think the only reason an extension doesn't get worked out is if he's not sure. But if I'm the team, I think that I would like to extend him. He's been a good player. Like I said, wants to be there, productive, lots to like about his game. So that'll be probably the main player you see. Otherwise, you got guys like Sam Lafferty, Peyton Krebs, Beck Ballenstein, Zach Benson, Isaac Rosen, Connor Clifton, Jacob Bryson, all eligible for extensions. But again, like Benson and Rosen, they're coming out of their rookie contracts. There's really no rush. They're going to be RFAs. I'm not sure the team really knows their long-term where they fit and value that yet, so it wouldn't be shocked if they waited on those. Mallenstein, they paid a decent price to bring over from Washington in a bottom six, fourth line role. It's possible he gets extended. It wouldn't be shocking, but at the same time, I could see them holding off. Krebs is another player. I don't know that they're sold on long-term yet either. And Lafferty, decent player, but very replaceable. So I don't know if we're going to see a lot in the way of contract extensions. I think the main one would be Tuck, but we'll see. Now, the top questions facing this franchise in the offseason, and what are we going to expect from this team and comes to, trades and the draft and free agency and all that? Well, as we just looked at internally, there's going to be a few new contracts likely get done, but there's not a ton of, shocking news to be waiting on that front. Now, we know we finally got word that we're not going to see any changes between Lindy Ruff behind the bench and Kevin Adams in the front office as the general manager. However, they did add Eric Stahl as a advisor to the general manager. So he's going to be coming into the Sabres. Now, again, another guy with no experience. I know Adams knows him well, but again, he's just recently ended his playing career. Hasn't worked in that kind of role before. So while you respect his opinions and things, being around the game and being a long-time player, he is new to his role. So I'm not sure what a fair expectation is. Although there's expectations are and rumors are that they are likely going to be hiring a president of hockey operations, which could be a go-between between ownership and Kevin Adams, and somebody with more experience to kind of be a good support lead for that front office to try to help the team get over the hump. But we've heard names like Ken Holland, but we've also heard Ken Holland's in the mix with the Islanders as well as the Los Angeles Kings. Now he's currently working for the league after leaving the Oilers last offseason. And really, when it comes to Holland, to me, there was rumors he was reluctant to go to the Islanders, wasn't real thrilled with where the team was at, and even though they had first overall pick and all this. So I'm like, well, if he feels that way about the Islanders, you'd suspect he would feel similarly about the Sabres, who's been out of the playoffs, for over 14 years, right? So I'm not sure what they do there, but somebody along those lines, an experienced executive, to come in and provide extra support and level of experience that they don't have. So we don't know for sure who that's going to be. We can't say 100% that it's going to happen, but right now expectations are that ownership is seriously considering adding a role like that. So we'll see. Another big question, as I mentioned earlier, is where does Josh Norris really fit in this lineup? And to me, that's a big question. It's not just can he stay healthy, although that is a question, but you're going to have no choice but to wait and see on that front. We can't really figure out the answer to that this offseason. But to me, when they traded Dylan Cousins for Josh Norris and listening to the comments from Adams, I suspected that they see Norris as a really good two-way centerman. And he is a centerman, but when he was playing with the Sabres before he went off injured, he was primarily playing with Tage Thompson on the wing. So I'm like, okay, where do you really see him? Because knowing where he fits in this lineup will determine what your holes in the lineup that you're going to try to fill. I think that's a big question they need to figure out is where they want him. Another big question is the future of Bo Byram, as I mentioned, as a restricted free agent. We've seen some speculation from reputable sources, including Craig Rivet, saying that supposedly Byram's packed up his house and has left town with not expecting to return. The feeling in the Byram side of things that a trade is more likely. We know he wants an opportunity to be the top defenseman, want to play top pair minutes, be the top guy, and get paid as such. He feels he's, capable of handling that kind of role and succeeding in that role. So, having guys like Power and Dahlin already there, does it make sense for them to offer a big money deal to Byram, or does it make sense to try to move him for a different kind of player that they feel might be able to balance things out better? So to me, right now, things are probably trending more likely that we see a Bo Byram trade, but what they target, it's difficult to say. Do they get another defenseman? Maybe that, possibly, more of a a balanced approach here. Like we saw Ottawa last year trade a guy like Chychrun for Nick Jensen and a pick. Is that maybe that type of deal? I mean, we saw how Nick Jensen really balanced out Thomas Chabot in Ottawa. So, do they bring in a guy like that they feel real comfortable, can pair well in the top two, whether it be with Dahlin or Power in that sense? That's a possibility. The guy like Byram, as young as he is and offensively talented as he is, they may be able to bring in more than one piece. It's really difficult to say, but it's trending towards a Byram trade. Things look that way, and we could see further trades and changes to the decor as well. It doesn't sound like you're going to see like the biggest names like Dahlin or Power move along. I suspect we won't, but Matthias Samuelsson's a name that's been out there as well. Again, not a given. A couple of things that complicate this trade is the fact that he's signed long-term. He's had some injuries that probably shy teams away a little bit. And I know this year his character came into question. They want to see more toughness. He's a really big guy, but he doesn't always play like it. And they'd like to see him have a little bit more of a mean streak, a little bit more of a nature to jump in and defend his teammates, and that's something that he got called out for this year and would like to be better at, but his name has been out there in the rumor mill as well. So, not a given, but it is a possibility that a guy like Samuelsson could be on the move too. When it comes to goalies, as I mentioned, the decision on whether or not you try to bring back James Reimer isn't your most important one. With the UPL stats this year and how he played, there is some speculation that they could look to be having some second thoughts here on that contract they gave him, and that maybe a trade could be in order. If they do trade him, I suspect that they would try to bring back, either in that deal or a separate deal, another veteran goaltender. And it's possible next year that they could sign Reimer and have Reimer and whoever is brought in be the tandem. Or do they say, you know what, Levi's put in enough time, he's got to sink or swim with the NHL and see what the tandem looks like. It's not real certain. I mean, I don't think Reimer is a big priority for them at the moment, but UPL could very well be a player that has moved. They need stability back there, and like I said, they thought they had it, and then this year now they're questioning that. So not a given he gets traded. Hard to say what other teams would think of the contract based on the numbers and performance this year. So it might not be easy to do, but I know it's something that they're at least going to look at for sure. But the goaltending tandem next year could be UPL and Levi. It very well could be completely different. I don't suspect Levi to go anywhere, but the other two I'd say is questionable for sure. Now, of course, at the 2025 NHL Draft, they have the 9th overall pick. They didn't have any extra luck in the draft lottery to move up any more than that. Are they going to make that pick, or could they trade it? There's going to be some players that are going to be available there. But to me, you're probably looking at the ceiling for some of those most likely guys either being a number 2 center or a second pair defenseman. You're looking at Matthew Schaefer, probably most likely going first overall right now. After that, there's like a run-on forwards for probably, it's quite possible that run-on forwards could go as deep as pick 8, 9, 10. It's hard to say. Depends on how other teams feel, and a lot of them are centers. There's a few wingers in there. So it's hard to say. But no matter who they pick at that spot, they're probably at least a couple years away from really getting a chance to play regularly and having an impact. The Sabres certainly want to make improvements as fast as possible. If they can find themselves a youngerish player that's already a little bit more established, maybe in their early 20s, that they feel can fit with this team and stay for an extended period of time, I would not be the least little bit shocked if they did make a trade involving this first round pick. Imagine if they traded or they packaged up the pick with Byram. Maybe they move up in the draft, or they try to see if one of the teams ahead of them that might be, in the, I don't know if you'd get a top 2 or 3, but maybe like the 4 or 5 range. Is it possible they try to talk to them about moving up to get a much higher pick? That's a possibility. Or it could be even more than that pick involved. You just don't know. But there's options, and I'm not 100% convinced that they pick at 9. Whether they try to move up or they try to to trade to pick involved in a package for a youngerish top like I said, top 4 defenseman or top 6 forward that can fit with this team would be something ideal. Because like I said, they don't need help in a few years. They need it now. So I suspect if they're going to make that trade, they're probably looking at a top 6 forward. Because I think if you're bringing in another D, especially if you're trading Byram, you're probably trying to bring in more of a complementary piece, like finding a great partner for your top guys like Dahlin and Power, right? So not really sure that has to be such a flashy trade. So we'll have to wait and see. But I do suspect that the Sabres are going to be busy. Like I said, you have this draft pick that could be in play. You've got Byram that could be in play. You've got UPL that could be in play. I wonder about Jack Quinn. And then you got some big contracts to take care of, like Peterka, McLeod, maybe an extension on Tuck. What do they do outside of does UPL go? If he does go, does another goalie come back? Lots of moving parts here. We do know that when we saw the trade at the deadline with Cousins and Norris, certainly they're acknowledging they need a different mix and they need to make a few changes. And they have lots of young players that are still, cutting their teeth or on their way up. That they have a pretty good prospect base and draft pick base. If they want to make a bigger splash, they have some options to do that. And of course, they have some cap space as well. But if depending on what they pay McLeod, Peterka, that number is going to obviously drop, and then from there you have to go. But Buffalo is going to have a tough time, I think, getting into the playoffs next year. If you look at the fact that they've been having this problem and been out of the playoffs for so long, and then you saw teams like Ottawa and Montreal not only surpass them but get into the playoffs this year, it's going to be tough to imagine that those teams are going to get worse, and then you look at is Toronto, Tampa, or Florida, are they going to get worse enough to fall out of a playoff spot? The Bruins are going to be trying to fight to get back in. You got Detroit right there with you with Buffalo. It's not going to be easy. So they need to be very strategic here and see what they can do. So I expect them, in the case of Adams and some of these guys too, I suspect their jobs are kind of on the line. If they have another bad year, I suspect significant changes. So they'll be coming out swinging, making some big moves. Should be interesting to watch and see what they do. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.